Have you ever wondered why so many startups, even the ones with brilliant ideas and super talented teams, just fail? Well, this explainer is all about a framework that has totally changed the game for entrepreneurs, the lean startup. It's a radical new way of thinking, a way to navigate the absolute chaos of starting something new, whether you're in a garage or a giant corporate boardroom. The core idea? It's simple, but it's so powerful. Stop building things that nobody wants and start learning what your customers really need. Okay, get ready for a little reality check here. The lean startup kicks things off by just shattering that romantic myth of the genius founder who succeeds just through pure willpower. You know the story, right? The hero who works 20-hour days, lives on instant noodles, and through sheer passion comes out on top. Well, according to author Eric Ries, that is a dangerous fantasy. And believe me, he should know, because his own startup journey was the exact opposite of that fairy tale. So why do most startups actually crash and burn? It's probably not for the reasons you're thinking. It's not about not having enough money, or a bad idea, or a lazy team. Nope. The real culprit, Reese says, is that they're following a hopelessly outdated playbook. It's like they're using a set of rules from a time when building a business was like following a simple recipe. But in today's world, where everything is constantly changing, that old recipe leads straight to disaster. And this is personal for Reese. His own startup story is a huge cautionary tale. I mean, he had everything going for him, a rockstar team, amazing technology, and what seemed like a brilliant idea. They poured their hearts, their souls, everything into it. But in the end, it all came crashing down. And that's when he had this incredibly painful realization. Even if you perfectly execute a flawed plan, you're still going to fail. So out of the ashes of his own failure, Reese spotted two really seductive but totally deadly traps for entrepreneurs. On one hand, you've got the master plan approach, where every single detail is mapped out years in advance. And on the other hand, you've got the just do it free-for-all, where it's all chaos and gut feelings. Both of these paths, he warns, lead to the exact same place, a whole lot of wasted time, money, and energy. Here's a really great way to think about this. Building a rocket ship, right? That requires a flawless step-by-step plan. One tiny mistake, one miscalculation, and boom. But a startup, it's not a rocket, not even close. It's more like driving a car at night through a super dense fog. You can't see the whole journey ahead of you. You just need to see the next 10 feet of road, just enough to know when to make the right turn. And that right there is the essence of the lean startup. So this all brings us to the three core pillars of a lean startup. First up, you've got your vision. That's your North Star, the big, ambitious goal that almost never changes. Then there's your strategy. That's your roadmap for how you plan to get to that vision. But, and this is the key part, that roadmap is not set in stone. You might need to take a detour, what Rees calls a pivot. And your product? Well, that's the car you're driving, and you're constantly upgrading and tuning it based on what you learn on the road. Okay, so this is where everything kind of flips on its head. The traditional goal is to build a cool product or chase revenue. But in the lean startup, the real goal is to learn. That's it. Seriously, to learn as fast as you can and as cheaply as you can what your customers actually want, and then figure out how to build a real business around that. Everything else, it's just a distraction. But how do you actually measure learning? I mean, that's a tricky question, right? You can't just count how many features you've built or how many hours you've worked. Rees calls those vanity metrics, numbers that look good on paper and make you feel busy, but don't actually mean you're making any real progress. So how do you know if you're actually getting anywhere? The answer is something called validated learning. Now, it sounds kind of academic, but the idea is super simple. Stop guessing and start proving. It means you have to get out of the building and collect real, hard data from actual customers. It's the difference between thinking people will love your idea and knowing they do because they're actually pulling out their wallets. That is the only kind of progress that truly matters. So, the big question is, how do you get this validated learning? Well, you do it with a simple but incredibly powerful process that Rees calls the build, measure, learn loop. This loop is basically the engine of the entire lean startup. It is the absolute core of the whole thing, and honestly, it's what separates the companies that make it from the ones that don't. So, let's break it. It all starts with build. You create something called a minimum viable product, or an MVP. It's the smallest, simplest possible thing you can make to test your big idea. Then you measure. You put it out there and see how real customers react. And this part is so important. You're not asking them what they think. You're watching what they do. Finally, you learn from that data. Did your idea work? Awesome. Keep going. Did it fail? That's okay. It's time to pivot, to make a smart, strategic change based on what you just learned. The name of the game here is speed. The faster you can race through this loop, the faster you learn and the closer you get to success. Okay, so that's the theory. It sounds good, right? But let's see what this actually looks like in the real world with a couple of fascinating examples from the book. First up, let's talk about Zappos. Now, today, we all know them, of course, but think back to the early days. They had this wild, kind of crazy vision to become the world's biggest online shoe store. I mean, think about it. That was a huge gamble back then. Their entire business, their entire future was resting on one massive, unproven idea. The assumption that people would actually be okay with buying shoes without trying them on first. This was the one question, the make or break question that they had to answer. If they were wrong about that, nothing else mattered. Now, the old school way to do this would be to spend millions on a big warehouse, a fancy website, and tons of inventory. But the founder of Zappos, he did something way, way smarter. He ran a super simple, genius little experiment. He literally went to his local mall, took pictures of shoes in the stores, and posted them on a really basic website. When an order came in, he would run back to the store, buy the shoes, and then mail them out himself. This wasn't some theoretical focus group or survey. This was a real sale with real money from a real customer. That right there is validated learning. Okay, now for a story that's a little more painful. This one comes from Ries's own company, IMVU. They spent 6 long months building a product they were absolutely sure was going to be a huge hit. They finally launched with a big bang and were met with crickets. Complete silence. It was a total flop. But instead of just giving up, they did something radical. They actually talked to the handful of people who were using their product. And what they found out was shocking. Their whole idea was wrong. People didn't want an add-on for their existing friends. They wanted a whole new place to meet new people. It was a brutal discovery, but it was exactly what they needed to hear. And that pivot, as painful as it was everything. By being willing to listen to their customers and completely throw out their original plan, IMVU went from a total failure to a thriving business pulling in over $50 million a year. It's just such a powerful reminder that sometimes the most valuable lessons are the ones that hurt the most. You know, this quote from a Kodak executive who actually adopted these ideas really just says it all. Your job isn't to be a feature factory, just churning out more stuff and hoping for the best. Your job is to become a learning machine, to become obsessed with solving real problems for your customers. That's the only way to build something that truly matters. All right, so as we wrap this up, I want to leave you with a little challenge. Think about your own project, your own idea, whether it's a new business or just something you're kicking around. What is the one single riskiest assumption you're making? The one thing that, if you're wrong about it, would make the whole thing fall apart. Now, here's the real question. What's the smallest, simplest, cheapest experiment you could run to test that assumption? Not next week, not even tomorrow, but today. That is the heart of the lean startup.